Welcome to Unleash Podcast. Our mission is to equip and inspire emerging leaders to take holistic approaches to lead themselves, their family, and the community. In this podcast, we will bring in expert insights to enrich your leadership journey. We are so glad you're tuning in, and let's unleash your leadership potentials.
Welcome to our Unleash podcast and our Facebook Live series on Growth Series. And today we have a special guest, a friend of mine, Chip Fuller, joining us from Southern California. Chip was introduced to us through one of our project leader. We work on a conference called Grow Mongolia. It's an ethics conference, happens in capital city of Mongolia every year. And Chip was introduced to us as a guest, but also as a participant to our committee. And his background is he's an author, and he has written multiple books about character development, why character matters, and children's book about character. So this is perfect situation that invite him to join us on today's episode. Chip, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Chip, why don't you introduce yourself to us, and where do you live? What do you do?
Okay, well, I'm originally from Chicago, but I've now lived in Orange County, California, in the Newport Beach area for the last 20 years. My background is I'm a former U.S. Marine, graduate of the University of Notre Dame. I've worked as an advertising creative director for 25 years. I've written, as you said, close to 40 children's books on character. I'm also a U.S. Federation A-licensed soccer coach. And I married my high school sweetheart 35 years ago, and we raised 6 kids here in California.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of soccer, I played high school soccer and collegiate soccer. One of my favorite sports all these years. And now I'm not able to play, but I still, watch Premier League, and I'm a big fan of soccer. So always get to talk to some other people who love soccer.
Yeah, I always tell the kids, be kind to your knees because you'll miss them when they're gone.
That's true. That's true. Well, so what got you into writing about character? Where did this whole journey started?
Well, it's interesting because, I've always been, kind of a person that tried to embrace character and knew that it was good, and had always been taught that it was good at home, and then ended up in the Marine Corps where, it's, honor and courage and commitment. These things are very important. Then I go on to Notre Dame, and it's tradition and hard work and study and all that. So it's kind of like, it's been kind of my life's work. And then as I started having children, I wanted to make sure I taught them all these principles and things that I know they're important. So I ended up every night we'd read books, and so I'd choose books that have stories about people of high moral fiber and high character. And I guess that's where it kind of came from early on. Actually, the middle names of all my children are virtues. So I have one, his middle name is Trustworthy. I have 6 kids. One's middle name is Trustworthy. My number 3 son's name is Truthful. One of my son's names is Courageous, his middle name. And my youngest daughter, her middle name is Hope. So this has been part of our family for a long, long time. It's who we are. And it's kind of just what I feel is like one of the most important things you can to have in your life is to be a person of character.
That's right. I mean, for a long time in our culture in Mongolia, a lot of our names come from a virtue as well. For instance, my wife's name is Bilgun. Bilgun means literally someone with grit and wisdom. My name is symbolically basically Baller. Baller means crystal. So my dad wanted me to have a pure heart. So he kind of gave me that name so that I could live up to that virtue.
Yes,
so, I have a lot of things. Yeah. So, Chip, what is character? Why it is important to human development and growth?
Okay, well, simply stated, I think character is those personality traits that we all possess. People in our society that say that we have good character are probably individuals who are honest, trustworthy, and kind and hardworking. And those people that we consider have bad character are seen as lazy, unfaithful, and liars. For good character is obviously the preferred position. One way that I have found that determine what character traits or which character traits you hold in high regard to yourself and to you as a person is sort of ask yourself what virtues you would like your children to embrace. Then you know that this is important. If this is what I want my son or daughter, this is how I want them to be, how I want them, then we know that it's something that's important. Because has there ever been a mother that has ever said about her son, I wish my son would tell more lies. He's just way too honest for me. I wish he would be lying more. You might help him out. No. And no father has ever been disappointed in his daughter if they would persevere when things were difficult. That's something that they would want their child to do. Things get hard, you keep going. You don't quit, you don't give up, because next time it's going to be easy to quit if you quit the first time. So the things that we want our children to be are almost always good things. So I'd say that is how you can decide what is a good virtue for you to embrace.
Well, like today's education puts so much emphasis on knowledge, skills, or even soft skills. Those we can learn. But what about character? Where do people learn them? And how do you form good characters?
Character, is important for human growth or your development as a person. And first, I assume you're talking about good character, and we're not going to talk about bad character now. We're going to be focusing on good character, because there are people with bad character and good character. So we'll just talk about good character.
That one will have another totally different episode.
That's right. It'll be a complete, you have to put on another day with some crazy person. So in that case, with good character, a man or a woman without good character, I believe, ultimately fail. And I've just seen this through my life and through observing people and observing circumstances and people who come to leadership roles. It happens with their organization if they're a person of low moral fiber. And when they fail, which ultimately they will, their home will fail. And when their homes fail, a neighborhood will fail. And when neighborhoods fail, our community will fail. And when communities fail, the state or the region where we live is going to fail. And when those states or regions fail, then ultimately the country will fail. So I think it's very important for a nation to want their people to be of noble character. My favorite quote regarding the importance of character was written by one of our presidents, President Theodore Roosevelt. And he said, "When wealth is lost, nothing is lost. When health is lost, something is lost. But when character is lost, all is lost." So I think that really encompasses what I just kind of tried to explain, is that how important character is. It is what a nation will rise or fall on. In fact, the United States became the United States because the people of the 30s and 40s were what we call in America our greatest generation. And they were the greatest generation because these are people were of the highest moral fiber that we've seen in generations through in the United States. And that generation now, unfortunately, is dying off. They're almost all gone. They're all in their 90s now. So I think this is why you see a decline in the United States and what the United States has stood for so many years. Mm-hmm. And unless that comes back, you can watch a decline of a great because they surrendered their character.
So these generation you're talking about in 30s and 40s, where did they learn their character? They learned it at their homes, or church, or school, or role models? Who are the ones really kind of help that?
Yeah. That thing about it. Now they we have two parents, a lot of two-parent working households and things, and it's not, both parents come home and they're tired, and it's tough to train children if you're tired and you just want to feed them and get them clean and get them off to bed, get their homework done or whatever they're doing. But it used to be that it was done everywhere. It was done, like you said, at school, then at home, and they were home most of the time. And then, of course, in their church or synagogue or wherever they would worship. So it was just part of who they became. It was who they were, because everywhere they would go, they would talk about the importance of being honest, the importance of being kind to each other, the importance of respect. These things happen because you're trained. It doesn't just happen. So.
Yeah, nowadays, we live in a world, the media exposes all kind of things.
Oh, yeah.
Every once in a while, every few days, you hear a leader fall, either a political figure or, a celebrity or sports figure or a business leader. People fall because of their default character or because of things they've done. It's bringing damage to their reputation, bringing damage to their organization and people they work with. Yeah. And it is becoming as you said, the world is becoming less and less people care about this kind of thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is very true. We've kind of turned it over to the schools mainly, and they have to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. They don't, so it's kind of just a quick little something once a week, or they put up a plaque that says, behave, or, respect, you respect, or, just words. But what I definitely do know, and why I wrote books, especially to children, instead of just teaching them a definition or explaining a concept, because principles will fade in your mind. But a story, you remember a story. And that's why I think it's important for stories. And the kids of the 20s, 30s, and 40s here in the United States read something called the McGuffey Reader. And every single story that they would read was on a character trait, and encouraging the kids to make that part of who they are, whether it was honesty or patience, whatever. But that was constantly encouraged. And then, of course, they go home, and mom and dad had already been brought up in the same kind of thing. They were already people of character, so they just pass it along to children, and it just perpetuates, keeps going like that.
So give me some example of people who are known for their great characters. You did mention a political figure. Who are some characters that inspires you, someone you look up to, but also like people can say, well, when I think of that name, I think of such character traits.
Right. Well, his nickname is Honest Abe. So that's when I think of honesty, that's who I would think of, is Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president, who was notorious for being honest. And this is actually what I teach my kids. I call it to your pain. So embrace a virtue to your pain. So what I mean by that is, if say something even simple, like something that somebody says, hey, you want to come over to my house after school or on Saturday when we don't have school, come to my house and we're going to go swimming. Do you want to do that? And you say, yes, I'll be there. And then, a couple hours later, you get a call from somebody else and say, hey, I'm going to go to Disneyland. My mom's taking me to Disneyland and we have an extra ticket. Do you want to go? So you've already committed. You've already gave your word to somebody. So to your pain would mean I don't get to go to Disneyland because I have already said I will be there Saturday. So that's what I mean by to the pain. You do it no matter what, because your name is what you really have to go on. And if once your name becomes, this guy is, not a good person, or he doesn't keep his word, that's who you become. That's who you'll get known as. And that's what you ultimately will become. That's why in politics, so many of the people try to, call you names and put things on you, like you're a racist, or you're a xenophobe, or you're a homophobe, or whatever, because they want to, put you down and get you on the run. Because if they can attach that to you, they know that your name is nothing. So that's why they do that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, across the world, people are looking for leaders or individuals who have ethical behaviors and ethical standards in workplace or even in company leadership role and all of that. How does personal character reflect ethical behaviors in that person's life? Does the ethical behavior relate to their character?
Oh yeah, because like I said, I touched on a little bit, it is who you are. So it translates into everything you do, everything in life. So you are an honest person. You don't stop being honest when you go to business. Just like if you're a dishonest person, you might amplify. You don't stop being a dishonest person. So it's who you are and what you have decided, this is me and this is who I am. And so you carry that with you. So if you're a kind person, that you don't stop being a kind person when you go into a restaurant and, the waiter is kind of messed up your order or whatever, and you don't become unkind to that person. You understand, you understand what they're going through, or what you have empathy for them, and you are kind to them regardless of what's going on in their life or what's happening to you at the moment. You are kind, and you always are kind. And so that translates into everything, into life, everywhere you go and everything you do, because it's not just, oh, I like these. No, it's who you become now. This is who you are. So forming good character and working on your character, that's like the critical thing, is how to do that, when to do that, and what's involved with that, in forming that good character.
So, like, I have small kids. I feel like, kids are much in a development stage. When you teach about character, when you teach about habits, when you teach about anything, they're forming, they're learning. What about adults, Like, we look at either corrupted leader with moral issues. We try to let them fix their character. Is it possible that they can change? What have you seen that worked, and what do you have seen that not work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Very good. I believe it comes down to understanding human nature for a beginning. So overall, just in general. So let me try to explain that. When my children were all little, I didn't need to tell them how to tell a lie. They figured that one out all by themselves. Yeah. If I'd asked one of my boys who ate a chocolate cookie after they had been told not to, and they ate the cookie with the cookie crumbs all over their face, they could look me right in the eye and say, no, I didn't eat the cookie. I never had to teach him how to lie. He just did it. It was natural. I had to teach or to instruct or to train him how to tell the truth. And I had to teach him how to share. And I had to teach him how to be kind. And I teach him how to say please and thank you and all these things. These things you have to teach. They're not natural. They're out of human nature. So you see, it's not enough just fine. We talked about just defining it like they do in our schools in America now. They just kind of put respect on the wall and kids are supposed to somehow become more respectful. No. It's not enough to explain it or what good character is. You must model it. So as a dad or as a parent, a mom or a dad, you have to model it. If you tell a child that they should be kind, but they watch you be unkind to someone, they will learn now how to be unkind, not how to be kind. So parents need to live out their character lessons that they are teaching and encouraging their children, that they want their children to embrace. Now to your point, I've been talking about children, and those are 3 to 10-year-olds. They're really malleable, and you can really help develop their character. So let me say that it is possible to develop character in teenagers and even adults, but it's much more difficult. Training a 35-year-old man who has lived a dishonest person their entire lives and training him now to make an effort to become an honest person will take a lot more effort than teaching a 5-year-old to becoming an honest person and making it part of their life. So I think that just makes common sense, but unless you hear it, you don't, oh yeah, that does make sense. So when you're taught young and this is just who you become and you grow up and that's who you are, that's it. That's who wants to be honest, but has found themselves to being dishonest, they have to work harder, but it can be done. So for children, I always say this: define the virtue to them. So tell them this is what honesty is. This is what it looks like to be honest, to be an honest person. Then model that virtue as a parent or a teacher or a coach or whomever you're trying to influence. Then encourage the virtue, and then reward the execution of the virtue. So what I mean by that is catch them being good. Catch them doing what you want them to do. Yep. We catch kids being bad all the time. But we also have to be able to catch them at doing good. You were so kind when you went over and helped the old lady next door, put her groceries away. That was so nice of you to mow her lawn or whatever it would be. And so that's define the virtue, model the virtue, encourage the virtue, reward the execution of the virtue, and then repeat. Do it again and do it over and over and over. And that's how you get that done.
Yeah, I remember Chewit Cathy, founder of Chick-fil-A, he wrote a book called Fix the Boy Rather Than Amend the Man.
Yeah.
So, when we were much younger, in a home setting, it's much easier to work and much easier to fix a kid and teenager so that then they all become adult and become a criminal or become, people with default characters. And, it's the same situation with leaders we look up to in politics and all of this. We have so many leaders with that, but you trace it back to them. It's probably when they were much young. They didn't have a place that enforces that. They didn't enforce us to grow up then. And now you try to even rule of law and try to do all kinds of things to try to bring accountability. But on the other sense, it's just like it's not in them, I feel like. They're not doing it because they honor those virtues. They're doing out of it just, as long as I don't get caught. Then that's a whole different scenario.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so true. Very true.
Yeah. There's so many ways to touch virtues. You did mention about storytelling. Why do you think storytelling is so a methodology you chose in terms of telling character?
Yeah, well, I mean, people can memorize a definition, and that's good, and they should. You define what is faithfulness to you, what is patience, what does that mean? So you should define it, but it's got to also be told to all of us. All of us learn this way. We all remember better, and we all can then put ourselves, like you watch a movie, you put yourself in the role. I used to put myself in the role of heroes. Now I'm putting myself in the role of the fathers of the heroes. So it's like, this goes on and on. But we put ourselves within those roles as we watch a movie or anything we're doing, or you're reading a book. So these stories then, because you've internalized them more and you've made them part of, almost like your memory, because it's imprinted more easily. Is a book, to me, a story like that is something that is remembered, and all the best teachers are fantastic storytellers. They tell stories, and you remember stories because they stay with you. You'll remember a story, or you'll remember a movie you watched a long time, but something you learned in school and maybe you had to memorize stuff.
Yeah.
Fades after time. But stories that you heard from a professor in college, I still remember those. It's been 30 years. I still remember stories being told to me in college. So that's why I decided, when I teach these, I used to read them to my kids, and then I put together this whole series of books that each book just focuses on one virtue. And it can, and I made them so they're like 5-minute reads, so you can read them in one night, easy. Everyone's got 5 minutes to spend with their kid to teach them something as important as virtue, where you can just sit down and read to them about courage, read to them about tolerance, read to them about patience, forgiveness, whatever it is. And then you get a little conversation with them too. So, you're actually teaching something. They say many fathers spend 45 seconds a day teaching their kids something, anything. Like, here's how to go clean up that's not how to pick up the trash. Here's how to do it. So things like that. So if you can spend 10 minutes with your son or daughter every day, at the end of the week, you're talking about you've got an hour in, and everybody else has less than 3 minutes in. So you can see how your influence on them will rapidly improve and improve what they will become. So it's a fantastic investment to sit with your child for 5 minutes each evening, reading a book and then talking a little bit about what you just read. And the best investment I've made is kids. Happily, and I'm not saying it's a guarantee that if you do this, then none of your kids are going to go sideways. No one will start drinking. No one will get into premarital sex or, have a baby out of wedlock. No one will, be thrown into jail for, taking drugs or something. But you really limit those percentage. Those percentages go way down by doing that. And I found it to be anybody who I know, children who they do this with, it works. Again, common sense. Everything you talk about is common sense. So I don't know if I'm saying anything new to everybody, but maybe just bringing it out, they're like, oh, that makes sense to me.
Well, you're breaking it down to a daily life, and you're breaking it down to a life-on-life scenario. You're breaking it down to more basically through storytelling, engaging. And I think a lot of times these little things actually make the differences, right? We tend to think we go to hear an inspirational speech, change our life. But character is something you don't change just by going to a big event. It changes like throughout the day, Monday to Sunday at your home, doing our most boring stuff, throw, like for my son, I was telling him like, hey, every week you remember throw away the trash. You remember doing certain home responsibilities. Behind that, that's where your character is forming, right? So it's not forming in a fancy environment. It's forming in a more boring and more routine environment.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's it. Another thing I always say is most of us learn character, both good and bad, by experiencing life. So someone says or does something mean to us, we have just experienced an unkind action. If someone promises to do something for us and they follow through, we've just experienced a trustworthy gesture. And that we're learning that. And if it's people that we respect, our parents, maybe a teacher or a coach or someone like that, it has an even bigger impact. If someone's being unkind and they're somebody that the child doesn't know, or maybe they see him at a grocery store and they're being unkind to the checkout guy, and that's a training moment right there for the parent. But the kid can also see that guy is not a good person. The kid will see that right away. And when we decide which virtues that we value most, and the ones we want to embrace, then we determine what kind of person we will become. So even an adult, they can decide, hey, I want to be. I haven't done a lot. I haven't been good at being honest or respectful or whatever. I want this to be something that I'm about. So, and what those wanting to pursue character should know is one thing, especially we're talking about the adults now, or the teenagers and the adults, that embracing good character is going to take effort. It is difficult to be good, and it's rather easy to be bad. There's a cost to be paid for being good, and you will almost certainly need to add humility to every good deed you perform. Scholars and philosophers have put together countless lists that describe virtues they feel that we all should possess, and most include, if not some of, but not all of the following. I put together my list of virtues that I kind of say, these are the ones that I kind of value or I prize. I think all virtues, we should try to embrace all of them, but the ones that I think make you a good citizen and a good person is honesty, kindness, faith, contentment. And I love a quote I heard from someone about contentment, the way to describe contentment. He said, who is more content, the man with $6 billion or the man with 6 children? And he says, it's the man with 6 children, because he doesn't want any more. So person who has $6 billion, he wants more. I remember what Rockefeller, he was the richest man in the world at that point. And he was asked by a reporter, you have all that, you have these 20 houses, you have, 6 boats, you have all this stuff, and you have more money than anybody else. How much more do you need? And his response was, just a little more. You cannot be content with money. So that's my favorite quote on contentment or description of it. The other 3 are forgiveness, humility, and love. And love is the virtue that encompasses every other virtue. Because if you love someone, you will be honest with them. You won't lie to them. If you love someone, you're going to forgive them. If you love somebody, you're going to be kind to them. So if you love someone, you're going to be humble, because you're going to put your needs under their needs. and try to meet their needs first. So if you want to forget all virtues and only have to remember one, remember the virtue of love.
That's true. Well, we're towards the end of our time together, but I will ask a couple practical things.
Okay.
One of them is, what are 3 things you can tell the audience about character development or character formation that they can apply, in next week or so in their life, that they can, look for ways to implement.
All right. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I have written some stuff on that, and actually I had 3 things that I do, or 3 things that I ask them to do, that I think that are important. First of all, you have to purpose in your own life. This is what I want to do. I want to do this. Because as I said before, being virtuous is not easy. Don't just come and think, well, I'm just going to become a virtuous person. It's not going to be easy. Like I said, it's easy to be bad. It is not going to be easy to be a good person. So that's the first thing. Count the cost. Count the cost of what this is going to cost you personally as a man or a woman. Next, ask yourself this question. And you actually mentioned this question early on, or kind of put it into a little bit different phrasing here. I have it. When people hear my name, what do I want them to think of? And that's an evaluation question, which you have to get by yourself and be honest with yourself. Do people think it when they hear your name? They think, oh, that's an Chip. I think of honesty. That's the first thing I think. And then I think of, trustworthy. I can count on what he's telling me is always going to be honest, and he's going to get it done, and he'll do what's right. Or do you want to be, a kind? I think of kindness when I think of him. Or do they think of the opposite of what you want them thinking of is, oh, he's a jerk. That guy, he's mean and he's nasty and, he's ruthless as he's a boss. He could make our lives, he could take the burden off of us and make our lives easy, but he's a boss that is just angry and nasty and mean and makes our life burdensome and difficult. That's what you don't want to be, because at the end of your life, one thing I've definitely learned, I actually learned this from my grandfather years and years ago. He said, nobody on their deathbed ever said, you know what? I wish I would have worked a few more late nights and weekends. I wish I would have made more money. I wish I would have been harder on people and did, and broke them down and defeated everybody. No, most people say, I wish I would have spent more time with my family and taught my kids something and was a kinder person. I wish I was a gentler person. So when you're leaving this life is when you really know what's important. So that's self-reflection, very important. Then write a list down of the things that you want to become. When people hear your name, what are they thinking of? Very important. And then finally, choose one virtue or character trait. And I would not start with love. Start with an easy one. Start with honesty or kindness, something that is easy, that's more black and white. And choose that virtue. And then for 1 month, work that virtue and see if you can make it part of your life. And you work it and you work every day. You never tell a lie. I'm not telling a lie. To my pain, I am not telling a lie. Even if it gets me in trouble, I'm just going to be known as an honest person, period. And that I'm following through, and I'm not going to stop until everything says that he's an honest person. This guy will tell the truth no matter what. Once you've got, if at the end of that month, if you haven't achieved that, then you go 1 more month. If you have achieved it, go to the next virtue on your list. I was an honest person, and I'm following you, and I'm going to stay with this. Now I'm going to work on kindness. Now I'm going to be known as an honest, kind person. And then you do it for that month. If you're a kind, honest person, if you're still just an honest person, work another month until you get it. and you just work on yourself and work and work and work. And so basically you're training yourself to be good.
Yeah.
So each month you just assess where you are, and that's it. That's what I would, you can do that tomorrow. You can do that tonight. You can say tonight, I'm going to write the list. I'm going to find out.
Sure.
I'm going to mess with myself, and I'm going to say what to people that, or I'm going to ask a couple of people,
Yeah.
you to be totally honest with me. And there, a lot
Yeah.
of people won't be honest with you, but if you can find those people that are honest, find those people they want to, and then have somebody that's going to hold you accountable for that. Have somebody your wife, she'll be, if you're saying I'm going to be kind and you're not, she will let you know that you're not meeting this that you set for yourself. So that's what I would suggest everybody do. It's worth it, because at the end of your life, where people say, "Boy, what a kind guy, what a great guy, what a good person." I have another quick little story for you. I know you're running out of time. There were two nasty lawyer brothers, Ned and his brother Dennis. Ned and Dennis, and these two were just deep people, and they were they're the opposite of everything we've been talking about. They are the bad character people, if you can consider these two. They were lawyers, of course. They were both lawyers, and they would, rip people off of their life savings. They would definitely prey on old people who had money, and then they would, work deals where they would siphon off a bunch of their money from them. They would commit adultery against their wives routinely, no problem. They had been married 3-4 times, no big deal. They would go to Las Vegas and gamble and take drugs and drink. They were heavy drinkers. So anything that you can think of that you shouldn't be, that was these two. The Dennis had killed somebody in a bar fight and was up on manslaughter charges, but his brother Ned paid off the judge and he got off. And then Ned got in trouble for statutory rape of a young 6-year-old girl when he said she was 18, and somehow they paid off some jurors and got him off of that. So these people were like the worst kind of people you can imagine. But as what's going to happen, one day, one of them died. Ned died. And so the church where they're going to have the funeral, Dennis goes to the pastor there and says, you know what? I want you to, I come here every Christmas and Easter. So, I'm part of this group. So I want you to do this for my brother. And I don't want you to listen to what you hear in the newspapers and reports and stuff about us. I want you to call him a good man. And if you do, I'm going to give you this sizable donation for your church. And so it was a lot of money. So the pastor ended up taking the money. So at the funeral, there was Ned laying in his coffin, and the pastor started by saying that before us, a accused rapist, he's a drug addict, he's an alcoholic, he's done horrible things in business, he's one of the worst people that you'll ever meet in your life. However, compared to his brother Dennis over there, he is a good man. He's still called him a good man. He's got his money, but he let people know. So you don't want to be known as that guy, Dennis, at the end of your life. Some people are, unfortunately. Yeah. You want to be. It's much better. A good name is to be highly valued for all of us. That's what you have at the end. That's the only thing that's remembered.
Yeah. I mean, we all have to-do list and something we want to build, business and all kind of things. And I would rather to also have a to-be list, a list that I want to, be remembered for. I want to strive for excellence in my character, or either at, my obituary at my death, people remember who I am for. That's something, certainly it's a lifelong goal rather than the short-term things that we're working on, right?
That's another great point. That's another thing that you can do. Write your own obituary now.
Yep.
I used to do it for my soccer teams. I used to have the guys graduating. They would write out, the college kids, they would write, it was, the title of everybody's paper was How I Want to Be Remembered. And just write that out. And that'll tell you what kind of person you want to be. And then, as you said, work that plan. Be that. What do you want to be? You can make it happen. You can do it.
Yeah. Okay. My last question for Chip, if people want to learn more about character and why good character matters, character formation, is there any books and resources you recommend people can read on and do some more further study on?
Again, I like biographies of people who you look or you think, well, this person was a person of high character. I want to be like this person. So get their biography and then their stories that you remember, and you see how they live their life, and you're like, wow. And that inspires you to go saying, hey, if this guy, another thing I've always learned, what one man can do, another man can do, or what one person can do, another person can do. So if these people aren't super people, those super people, if this guy can do it, I can do it. So use those stories of inspiration, and you can find them so if you say you want to be honest, off the top of my head, you got Abe Lincoln and boom. Yep. If you want to talk about someone whose forgiveness, she forgave her, then not later on in life, she was taken to a concentration camp because they were hiding Jewish people in her home, and her whole family was taken out, and her whole family was killed, and she was let out by some clerical error. And then later on in life, she met a guard that was a guard at this camp that killed her whole family. And she wasn't originally able to forgive him, but she prayed about it. And then immediately she just had this, feeling, I'm going to forgive this person. And she ended up being able. And so if you forgive a person that killed you, these are the kind of stories that if you have, you can say, wow, if she did this, then why can't I forgive this person for, backing into my car or, messing up my lawn or playing their music too loud or whatever it would be that you don't like, you don't want to forgive. So I would do that. And you can Google inspirational quotes, and you can, there's a lot of really good ones, and but I would say biographies of people of high moral fiber, high character. And you could, or whatever, you just Google, character people, or you can hear of people. Genghis Khan, he was like one of the most famous people for not being a loyal person himself, but for instilling loyalty in all of the people around him. This was like he was like one of the most famous people for loyalty. So I mean, there's people in every walk of life, in every generation. There is somebody that you can find a story or a book on, that you can read it and say, even made up characters, you can find something good about them that I should be like this guy. I mean, he's just totally always, happy, or, has a great sense about him.
Yeah. Well, Chip, thank you so much for taking time and having this conversation with me. Certainly, on behalf of our audience, we're grateful that you're part of this. And thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it. I appreciate coming on and talking about something that is my passion in life anyway.
Yeah, we hope to, even with the Grow Mongolia and so many things that we're doing, we hope to have you over there at some point in person, or hopefully this message can get there before those conferences and events that you get involved to.
Great.
Well, to the audience, thanks again joining us for this episode. And make sure you listen to our Unleash podcast. Make sure also follow us on our YouTube channel so that there's more interesting and life-building topics you get to listen to and you get to learn with. Thanks for being part of our community of learning. See you next time. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Unleash podcast was brought to you by Asia Leadership Development Network. In this podcast, we will discuss topics related to leadership, personal development, family, mental and emotional health, business entrepreneurship, organizational and community leadership, and more. For a better tomorrow, we strive today. Thank you for joining us.